Welcome to the New England Endurance Podcast. I'm your host, Art Trapotsis, along with my co-host, Eric Schenker. Hey, Eric, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. For folks that don't know, this is a podcast where we explore the incredible world of endurance sports in New England. And today we're talking about the wonderful sport of endurance swimming. We have our guest, Craig Lewin. He's the president, head coach, founder of Endurance Swimming, an organization that helps open water swimmers of all levels move more efficiently through the water. I could use some help there. And he's also recently founded a conference called Beyond the Breakers, an event aimed at uniting the open water swim community here in New England.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to have, in addition to all his other accolades, let's be clear, he's coached one of the most elite middle-aged men triathlete retired swimmers.
Who's that?
Oh, that's me. So that's what I think it was a decade ago. What do you think? More than a decade ago?
I think more than a decade.
I was a two and done Ironman guy, but he got me through it. I maybe, open water swimming. We're gonna dive into that because I think other people like myself were really, really intimidated by that aspect of it. But yeah, in addition to founding the conference, which sounds super cool and excited to learn more, Craig is quite the athlete and the coach. He's an Ironman Certified Coach, which we have established, and certified with the U.S. Master Swimmers. He's completed the Triple Crown of open water swimming. Do you know what the Triple Crown of open water swimming is?
No, I don't. What is that?
I'm going to tell you what that is. That's the Catalina Channel, the 20 bridge swim, and the English Channel, which is totally insane. He's also an accomplished triathlete. Fun fact, Craig graduated from the greatest college in the history of all colleges in the United States and the world, Boston College, my alma mater. And he's a local boy. So welcome, Craig.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And we got connected actually through a mutual friend, Janda Riki Munn.
Yep. So everybody knows Janda.
Yep.
Shout out to Janda.
Janda coached my wife when she went to Worlds in New Zealand for the sprint distance triathlon, something like over 10 years ago. So got a little connection there.
Janda is the connector of connectors. So I was mentioning to another friend of mine, Cookie Bob, Lark Cookie Bob, about swimming. And he's like, I think I did a clinic with Craig at one point. And he's like, I don't know how I got to him. I said, you think it was Janda? And he's like, definitely it was Janda. So
shout out to Janda.
We might need to get Janda on the pod here, I think as well.
So Craig, open water swimming fascinates me. I was just curious, what attracted you to open water swimming, and what attracts just, I guess, anybody to long distance open water swimming?
Okay. I think for me, it was the challenge of you can do all the training right. You can do everything like possible to control what you can control and still fail. And that's what's super exciting where, you do Catalina Channel, English Channel, you do all this training, you get there, you're halfway through, the weather changes, and like you've done everything you can, and you have to accept that. And
so
be flexible.
Failure excites you?
I think you grow from it. It's how do you overcome those obstacles? So it's more, not so much the failure, but again, like it's not a guarantee. So you're doing all this training for no real guarantee.
Wow.
And you're going to have to dig really deep and find something within yourself. And I think I like it. I think a lot of other swimmers like it because it's it's you. Yeah. You have a support crew, but like you're in it by yourself.
And how do you define open water long distance? I mentioned 2 miles, but what do you think of?
It's relative, but marathon swimming is technically anything over a 10K.
That's a long swim. And so, to be clear, you're not turning on the side.
There's no turning on the side.
You're not maybe putting your hand on the side of the pool for a little bit. Like, let me take a couple deep breaths before I go. That's
no touching anything.
Yeah, and you just said something which I'm sort of interested in because a lot of us that are here and that are listening to the podcast are endurance athletes. So they're running, they're cycling, they're Nordic skiing. Maybe some are swimming, but when you say digging deep in endurance swimming, where are you feeling it?
Everywhere,
yeah.
You're in pain, but more mental than physical. Like when you do a road race, you have hundreds of people around you. You have people cheering you on. You're out in the middle.
Actually, not me. I'm usually pretty isolated towards the back.
Fair enough. But you have people, you have people around you. You can stop to walk.
Right.
You're in these open water environments, you can't stop. Like, you get cold. There's no warming up. There's no walking. There's no stopping. Like, you just have to dig deep mentally to find a way to get through it and keep going.
Wow. The thermal regulation, that's actually something I didn't think about. I was, just thinking about that physical nature, but you're right. You can't walk. You can't stop, right? Like, you need to find a way to keep going. So, if we go to the Triple Crown, because that's super, like, I don't want to spend too much time on the Triple Crown, but I need to know a little bit more about it. Like,
Okay.
What was the hardest of that Triple Crown and why?
I think they were all challenging in different ways. I think English Channel's the most challenging just because it's so unpredictable. You get there and you ride what they call the Dover coaster. So you are literally in Dover and the weather's so unpredictable. It looks like a beautiful day and the captains are calling you and be like, "No, we're not going today." I'm like, "What do you mean we're not going today?" So you have to be ready to go at like a couple hours notice because they literally call you and say, "Hey, we're in 5 hours." So
how many folks actually accomplish, make it across each year?
Each year, I think the stat, it's like a 50% like success rate or something around that. They only have so many tides. I think it's like less than 100 people a year.
Okay.
It's probably closer to like 70-ish.
So which one was your favorite?
My favorite was Catalina. I thought it was beautiful. You have the dolphins swimming next to you. Like, everyone gets a dolphin picture at some point. So you have dolphins with you. It's like gorgeous coastline. It's challenging because everyone starts at night. So English Channel, it depends on the tides. Catalina, it's generally an 11 p.m. start. So you're swimming at least 6 hours in like pitch black.
Which side are you starting from the island, or are you starting? Okay, all right. Because I was thinking you could finish at the wine mixer.
No, the start's kind of weird too because it's all the kelp forests. So like, it's pitch black and you're swimming and you have things like touching your body. You're like, "Oh, I don't like this."
Out. I'm out. Tapping out right now.
Could you share a memorable story from one of your long distance swims?
For me, I think the most memorable piece though is like Catalina was my first big channel. I was like freaking out, super nervous. I'm like, "Can I even do this?" And I get in and basically I had two friends who were support swimming with me and I was freezing. And the water wasn't cold. I was just mentally like losing it. I was all over the place. And I'm thinking, "Oh man, my friends just took a bunch of time off of work to be here. And I don't even know if I'm going to make it for them to even get a chance to get in." And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, I know this isn't cold, but I'm shivering. I'm freezing. So I was like, that first 2 hours was probably the most miserable 2 hours of any swim I've done. But I was like, you just got to get there, just make it so that your friends can at least say they got in.
Yeah.
Made it there. And then everything was fine after that. But I think that was like the most memorable because I was just doing anything I could to make it to that first mark where one of them could jump in and swim with me. And
So how far is it and how long did it take?
so Catalina's just over 20 miles.
Okay.
And it took me 11 hours.
There's a whole topic there about like nutrition and everything, but we won't get into that.
And I also think we maybe started too hardcore because a lot of our objective here is to get people excited about learning more about this, but you don't start. Perhaps,
you don't start there. No.
You don't start there. So let's start with your company, Endurance Swimming. What is it that you do? Where is it based out of? How did it come to be?
Sure. So we're Endurance Swimming, very generic name. We're here to help swimmers. Mostly open water swimmers. We work with triathletes. We work with open water swimmers, marathon swimmers. So we don't really care about the distance. All I care about is effort. People who are committed, who want to get better, who want to basically gain confidence through athletics. And it started because when I came out of college, I was a collegiate swimmer. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I want to keep swimming, but I don't really want to join masters. Not that there's anything wrong with it, just wasn't exciting to me to continue. I knew I probably would never be as fast in the pool as I once was, and that's a hard pill to swallow. But when you go in the open water, pace is irrelevant because you have currents, you have wind, you have all of these different factors that don't matter. So to me, it's like, okay, I can kind of dissociate from the speed aspect of the sport and focus more on like my own performance and getting better. So when I left college, started doing triathlon, I just saw a big gap. Pool swimming and open water swimming are completely different sports. Like, they are not the same stroke. Everything about it is different. You can have an Olympic level swimmer come into the open water and almost drown because they don't see the bottom anymore and they freak. So for me,
what's different about the stroke?
it's so open water, depending on the conditions you're swimming in, there's chop. It's less dense. So if you're in saltwater environments, it's less dense. So your stroke rate is higher. So coaches in the pool teach you distance per stroke, 10 strokes per length. Open water is like, no. It's like minimum of probably 60 strokes per minute, but really 70, 80, depending on the event you're doing, because you're not pulling as much water with every single pull in like a saltwater environment versus a pool environment. So that's like one of the big ones. And then you have chop. So your recovery is a little bit different based on the conditions you're swimming in. So it's basically, I started this company to bridge that gap of you get these pool swimmers who go to like, oh, I can swim, I'll be great, my first triathlon. And then they're getting hit by people. There's no bottom. There's nowhere to stand up. Like there's a lot of different elements, even outside of just different technique. So I started it to bridge that gap, and actually started as mostly triathletes. But as I started to transition more into just open water swimming, I've expanded, my reach as a coach to focus on more than just triathletes and try to bring more focus to open water in general, regardless of the distance or how it's being utilized, whether it's in triathlon, it's a 1 or 2 mile swim, or it's a marathon swim.
Where are you guys based out of?
So we're remote. We work with everyone all over the world, but I'm based in Canton. So that's where I do most of the work. And then we do a free open water workout to try to get more people interested on Saturdays. And that's in Swampscott. Yeah,
let's talk about that. So how would someone go about getting involved with the organization?
So with mine particularly, it's usually it's Google. They'll search like open water swim Massachusetts. I think my site pops up, and we have we have an email list, and basically people just sign up. Hey, just let me know when the swims are going to be. Every Friday I send out where and when the swim is, and there's no fee. It's just anyone's welcome to join. It's very much an at your own risk swim, because we're all just a group of people who are connected by swimming, and we all keep an eye on each other. But the goal is like we just want more people to join us, because the more people we have, the more fun it is. We get to expand our community and really just grow our network. So
we're recording this on a Friday.
Yep.
Where are we swimming tomorrow?
So tomorrow's an interesting one. We are going to be at Phillips Beach in Swampscott. I'm going to be doing a 4-hour kayak for a couple of my marathon swimmers, and then I'll have some of the people doing, just mile swims. They'll be joining, like not for the full 4 hours. They'll jump in. I'll be kayaking, watching everyone, and feeding the marathon swimmers while, making sure that the triathletes and other swimmers are just having a good time and staying safe.
So what is that? So again, hey, I'm thinking about doing some open water swimming. This sounds great. I'm going to go join you. What's I think what people are wondering is, what's the shortest amount that they could go and do for this kind of free workout?
I mean, I have people who come and they just walk. Like they literally get in the water because they're nervous about waves. Like it's about comfortability. Right. So open water swimming is about confidence and comfortability. It's not necessarily about being the best swimmer. You need to be a confident swimmer. You need to know what you're doing, but we don't go out 200 yards offshore. Like if you're not super comfortable, like no one judges. We're happy if you walk. Just get in the water because you are nervous about the open water. We have people, they go, waist deep, then they go horizontal and they start swimming. So if they panic, they just stand up. It's like safety is number one for us. So we don't judge people. I think we're very much a group where it's swim within your limits. And we appreciate that because that is what keeps the group safe, the group safe. And that's what is going to get people coming back so that they feel, they build that confidence. They see people like walking and like, oh, I can just walk. That's cool. And then they start going, waist deep, and then they start going chest deep. And then, they're just getting more and more comfortable. So you get to watch that progression through others in the group. And once people see others doing it, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile. Once one person does it, like, 5-6 people do it right after. It's the same thing. Once they see people who were scared now doing mile after mile, they're like, oh, like that person was me 3 years ago. And that's the beauty of the group, is because everyone started in a very similar position, and having that community, it starts that conversation of like, oh, how did you get so good? And they're all like, all the swimmers who are better, like I started like you. I was petrified of the open water. I just started walking. Well, like, and if it was too wavy of a day, I didn't even get in, and that was fine. They were there.
How do you address rip tides?
So you can see, I mean, we teach people to read conditions. So they're very easy to spot, because we don't swim out, we're generally swimming parallel to shore. It is safer. It's easier for an exit. You might get pulled out a bit as you're swimming through it, but the fact of the matter is you're swimming through it. Yeah. So you're always going to be able to like come out of it on the other side, no problem.
Well, what should somebody show up with if they're coming out to their first open water swim in Swampscott?
Okay, so New England is cold. We have cold water. In my group, a handful of us don't wear a wetsuit, and most do. So we do recommend for your first one at least a wetsuit, just because if you don't know what you're doing, and then you get in 62, 63 degree water, that is not warm. Like, it might be warm when it's 90 degrees out and you're running in and splashing around and going back in, but when you're out there for 40 minutes, an hour, it can get cold. So we do recommend a wetsuit at a minimum, brightly colored cap. And then we also provide swim buoys, just for visibility for myself, like, cause we all keep an eye on each other, but also, like, I know they're not an emergency device, but like, if you're really struggling, you can grab a hold of it and like catch your breath for a minute. And so we do recommend those, and goggles, obviously. Those are like the main items, but the wetsuit also has the added benefit of buoyancy.
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit more safety too. But
yeah.
So that's at a minimum, that's what we recommend.
That's great. And so we'll recap it at the end, but if somebody wants to get on that mailing list, how do they do that?
So they just go to liquidtry.com.
Liquidtry.com.
And there's a link, I think a pop-up. I don't know. I made it very easy for people to find. There is a page that is like free open water workout. And they just sign up and I add them to the email list and they get it every Friday.
Where would folks expect to show up and swim? Like, what are some of your locations?
So we focus mainly, we swim year round. So that's a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't go back into the pool ever. After COVID, I was like, I'm done with the pool. I hate it. So we switched. We transitioned fully to open water year round, rain or shine, not thunderstorms, not fog, but rain or shine, snow, sleet, we don't really care. So we will generally it's usually in Swampscott. It's usually going to be at Phillips Beach, just because I know the area, I know it's there. It's easy ins and outs if there's an emergency. Or we'll be at Fisherman's Beach in Swampscott during the winter, just because it's safer for like what we will call ice swimming.
Yeah.
So
yeah, ice swimming. You guys do ice swimming?
We swim year round, so yeah, we do ice swimming.
Oh man.
If somebody was a beginner,
yep,
and wanted to come out, is there one of the locations that you typically would go to, say, hey, you know what? I'm just using Swampscott. Swampscott's a great one. It's really shallow beach. You can go pretty far out and swim. Like, what would be that? Hey, I'm thinking about my first one. This is the one I would look for.
Yeah, I mean, I only swim at beaches I know we can get like an emergency exit out of, like, very easily and get to if we need help or whatever it is. So I do, if you're in like the North Shore area, I do like Devereux Beach. We'll swim there sometimes, which is a Marblehead. But I generally like Swampscott. I like Phillips Beach in Swampscott in the summers, Fisherman's in the winters. I wouldn't swim at Fisherman's in the summer. It's a lot of boats. And
what about Walden Pond?
It's fine. I think so. Walden has
There was a pause there.
I'm not much of a freshwater swimmer.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I don't find it challenging, but it's challenging in a different way. But it's generally warmer than any body of water, and I know everyone's just like, oh, the water bacteria, but like the ponds are the most disgusting of the sources of water.
Walden's been shut down a bunch of times. This
Walden.
Summer.
I think in what is it? Is it Boxford or Topsfield? What's the one in Topsfield?
Styles.
A lot of triathletes like Styles. I'm like, dude, the bacteria count is through the roof there. Why you go to the ocean? It's much better. It's more challenging. It's more fun. I also prefer the ocean because if you're doing a triathlon in the open water and the swim is in the ocean, that is different.
Yeah.
Than it's in a lake. But if you can swim in the ocean, you can go to a lake. If you swim in a lake or a pond, you can't necessarily transition into the ocean easily. So I have no problem with it if that's where it's easiest for you and gets you in the water. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
That's in my backyard.
Nice.
What's a typical training week for an endurance swimmer?
It depends. It really depends on what they're training for. So
let's say I'm training for a 5K swim.
5K swim.
Are you swimming 6 days a week?
So probably not. You're probably swimming 3, 4. And it depends what your goal is. Is your goal to win? Is your goal to finish? So I think it depends on goals, but generally you're probably, for a 5K, you're probably going to be doing 10 to 15,000 yards max over the course of the week. One thing with open water though, that's very different is, at least in the longer distances, is you do want to do training like more time-based, not distance-based. So it's like finding that mix, because if you're training in the ocean environment, you don't know what the current is. So you could swim for an hour and cover 500 yards, and your pace could be 5 minutes, 100 or whatever that, 10 minutes, 100. But the equivalent, like what the output you were really doing with your body, the physical output would be equivalent to, your average hour in the pool.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's more time-based. Like, what do you think your 5K is going to take you? And that's kind of what you're training up to.
Do you recommend doing, intervals in the pool, for example, to get better at the 5K swim?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of open water swimmers that struggle, it's because they are, or like marathon swims, 10Ks, 5Ks, they struggle because they're not fast enough. And what I mean by that is sometimes there's a race cutoff, but if they get stuck in a current, a lot of the times people aren't fast enough to beat the current and then end up getting pulled because they don't have the speed. So with any distance, they should be doing interval training. It's no different than like a marathon, right? You go to the track, you do your interval training. You're doing a triathlon, you're doing, interval sets on the bike. So it's no different. You just have to remember, I'm doing a long swim. So at some point in your training, you have to do long swims.
Yep.
I'm super interested now on nutrition in the water, right? Like, so at what point, I guess, what is a typical nutrition source that you're eating or drinking or digesting? And then generally a personal rule of thumb that I use is over 90 minutes, I'm sort of going to bring nutrition with me, whether it's a run or a bike. Always a water bottle on the bike, but for swimming, are there any sort of guidelines like that? And then what is it that swimmers generally ingest while swimming? Because that seems very complicated to me.
Yeah, I actually think triathletes make it more complicated, as they do with everything.
That's a rule. Oh, really? I've never heard that.
Let me get my power meter and my watch.
Let's overcomplicate everything about this sport.
All the data. Yeah. No, so it depends on the distance. I think the same general rules apply. Like 90 minutes, you're probably going to want something. It depends on what you're doing. So if you're doing, say, a 10K, right, you're probably going to be out there for average swimmer, 3.5 hours, maybe 4. So you are going to need to eat at some point, depending if you have support or not. So like a kayak support or like an aid station, which some of the bigger FINA type races do have.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Like if you have
floating aid station.
Yeah. And the coaches, they have like the golf, like the golf ball retrievers from the water, and they put like cups in it, and they'll swim by, grab their cup, throw it in their mouth. Like they do it in like 3 seconds. It's incredible. But there's like, it's like a run aid station, but everyone's swimming. So they're all swimming over each other, trying to find their coach with the cup. And you get on YouTube and look at it. It's crazy. But so some swimmers will carry like goo or, whatever, Martine, whatever the products they like to use are. It's very swimmer specific, because just like triathlon, you don't want GI issues. You want to make sure you have the fueling. But once you're going past like 3-4 hours, you do have to be very concerned about carb intake, because that's what
you don't want to bonk.
Right. So that's what you're burning. Like that's what you're using. And, depending on electrolyte, not as much, because the water is cold. You're not necessarily sweating the same way you do in a triathlon, right? Triathlon, it's on an 80, 90 degree day. You're sweating like the entire freaking time. Open water swimming, like you're still sweating, you're losing water, but not necessarily at the same rate that you are, in a hot environment. So with carbs, we usually use like maltodextrose. There was a drink a lot of marathon swimmers in the US use called CarboPro, and it's literally just like eating a loaf of bread. I think 2 scoops was like 60 grams of carbs, and you would do that every half hour or so. So like every swimmer has their own technique, but you're probably targeting around 60, 70, maybe even 80 grams of carbs per hour is what you're looking to do.
And is that liquid or is it chew, like, and are you rolling on your back and ingesting? I mean, I'm really I'm kind of just closing my eyes and trying to figure this out. And it's very fascinating.
Yeah. So it's very personal, like whatever person wants, but it is the swim. The swim dictates what you're going to do. The longer you're stopping, like to tread water, if you're in the channel, you're losing distance because the way the currents work. So like feeds, the boat captains yell at you. Like you should be training your feeds to be less than 30 seconds, definitely less than a minute, but like really it's 10, 15 seconds. It's not a chatting break. It is get the food down and get going. Because the more you're sitting around, you're going backwards or off course. And then, it adds up. Like you could miss a tide, right? You could miss the current switch and then you're swimming in a current for 4 extra hours because your feeds took too long.
Wait a minute. We just let tides. It's
a lot going on.
We're going down a rabbit hole right now, man. I think we're getting too. Yeah. I think we're covering almost too much. But this is wow. Yeah. Like at every turn, we're learning something new and more complicated, but which is actually kind of exciting, right? I think what my certainly takeaway from the short time that we've already been talking is it's a lot more than just being a good swimmer and being able to go swim for a long time. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to it.
When you get into like anything, when you get to the extremes or more extreme, there's way more than just swimming. But at the end of the day, if you know how to swim, anyone can do this.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it is you have an injury, like a knee injury. That's what happens is most of the people who start open water swimming, they were a triathlete that got hurt, CrossFitter who got hurt. And they're like, I just want to build strength and stay in shape. And they all move to swimming. And generally they all stick around because you have 90, 100-year-olds still doing it. You have people in their 60s, 70s doing the English Channel. So it's achievable.
So with regards to the endurance, the swim endurance community in New England, so with cycling, you've got, let's say, 40 cycling clubs within 495.
Yep.
What does the open water swim community look like in New England? Is it a big community?
I think it's big in numbers, bigger than you think, but it feels to me, and this is why I started the conference or want to start, it feels a bit disjointed. Like if you go to San Diego, like I have a lot of athletes and friends in San Diego. There's a bunch of groups. Like there's Tower 26, there's one with the ocean, there's like 4, 5, 6, and probably more groups that literally they just meet, and it's hundreds of people. They meet every weekend to go for a swim. Like it's big. Here, I mean, in Massachusetts, like there's a few groups. There's like my group. There's a couple others, but it's more friends getting together or posting in. There's a Facebook group that I highly recommend for people interested, all levels, not marathon swimmers, just triathletes, everyone. It's Boston Open Water Swimmers. It's on Facebook. That's a great resource. Like it's people like, hey, I'm going to go for a swim in this river or this lake. Like anyone want to swim with me? So it's more people reaching out. But then you get to like Rhode Island, and Rhode Island has like 6 or 7 pretty decent groups that swim. They do like 3 swims regularly. And then I think New Hampshire's a little bit better. One of the people I know, Bob Fernald, he runs Seacoast Open Water Swimming. Same thing, similar to my program. Free workouts, I think Wednesdays and maybe Saturdays, but he's got a Facebook page, Seacoast Open Water Swim. Again, he's just about how do we get more people involved in this sport? And
probably nothing in Connecticut, though, right? Not any good athletes in Connecticut?
I don't know much about the Connecticut scene.
Probably, yeah. Makes sense.
Inside joke there.
Yeah.
So Art's from Connecticut.
So you mentioned you mentioned the conference, or one of the reasons why you started the conference. So could you talk a little bit about Beyond the Breakers conference?
Yep. Yeah. So I started because I try to get people into my group, but outside of like the Facebook group and maybe 1 or 2 coaches, at least in Massachusetts, like we have a lot of marathon swimmers. We have a lot of Triple Crown swimmers like in the area. A lot of people have done the English Channel, but there doesn't seem to be that place for people to connect and like understand there's more resources, there's more things out there. And so for me, it kind of started because of Massachusetts swimming, but more holistically, like I know all these coaches and dryland professionals, marathon swimmers throughout New England that are phenomenal. And we have Boston Light Swim, which is like the oldest marathon swim in the country.
Is that the one that Adina, I think, was talking? Like, what is the Boston
So
Light
they
swim?
drop you off at the lighthouse in Boston Harbor, and then you swim. It's 8 miles, and then you swim to L Street.
I think that was definitely the one we talked about. And that is a pretty renowned. Is that the Boston Marathon of open swimming nationally, or is just
that's
for
the
us?
one? That's the one people know. Like marathon swimmers know that they want to do that one. It's not like the hardest one; it's just the oldest. And I think Massachusetts Open Water Swimming Association does a very good job. And I don't think a lot of people know that we have our own Open Water Swimming Association, and we have other swims. Like I think Elaine Howley and Alana Oben and Mina Ellencash, they do a phenomenal job. But unless you're in like open water swimming, you don't really know to look for it. So it's how do you get people who aren't in it to be more involved? And that's the purpose of the conference, is to pull together people from New England to be like, look, these are all the resources at your disposal. And I think on top of that, I would love to get some of the collegiate swimmers to come. And the reason is, like, just like me, we're not all going to the Olympics. We're not all built for master swimming and triathlon. And I want them to know, like, no, there's a way to be competitive and do something you love, but also start disassociating from this, like what you were to what you're becoming as like a professional, building a family, and finding that group of people and that like those people you can connect with on a deeper level, and just go for a swim with and like hang out with and have fun.
So is the conference for learning about open water swimming, or it's to bring together all the open water swimmers?
It's, I guess, both. It's about connection, but it is more learning. It's a learning conference. It is not an expo. So we're going to have, I think we have over 20 speakers coming. It's 2 days. It's going to be 2 different rooms running simultaneously, different talks, but it's not just like the swimming component. Like we've talked about, there's nutrition, there's sports psychology, there's ocean conservation, marine life safety. Like, so there's so many different elements, and those are the professionals we're bringing in so that people can come and whatever they're looking to achieve, whether it's just dip their toe in or train for the English Channel, or maybe it's like, I want to kayak. I love kayaking. How can I do more with my kayaking? Oh, well, there's thousands of open water swimmers in Massachusetts who need kayakers to help them. So I think it's more about like showing people to look at all the opportunities and how big and robust this community could be, and how, I want them to like learn from some of these speakers and walk away with feeling inspired and feeling, oh, I can do this, whatever the goal is, and have a plan or a person that they can easily go and talk to and feel comfortable like they're going to get me to where I need to go.
So I am not an open water swimmer. However, I love the fact that you're doing this conference. This is incredible that you're trying to basically build community, which is what this podcast is all about. And we're going to plug this. So it's Bentley College, November 9th and 10th.
Yep.
Anybody can sign up.
Yep.
And there's a schedule online on, what's the website?
So the website's swimbeyondthebreakers.com.
Swimbeyondthebreakers.com. You talking about the lighthouse swim and everything. Is there a website that shows all of the open water swims in New England?
So I think, so Master Swimming has different like regional, I guess, branches. So the New England branch does have some of them listed, but there isn't really a place that has every single one listed. Like you have to go to US Masters for some, you have to go to TriFind for some, you have to go to like all these different sites to find all of them. I know people have like tried to build repositories and sites for them, but I don't know of anyone who's done it successfully. But if you're out there and you
what would be with our other guests, we ask about sort of hidden gems in New England, events that folks haven't heard about. Are there any hidden gem open water swims that you could recommend for the listeners?
So I guess if you're looking for like an organized event, I think Kingdom Swim Festival, I wouldn't say it's not necessarily hidden in New England, but it's kind of a hidden, like a lot of people wouldn't know about it. But Phil White runs that, and that's up in Vermont. And
like in the Northeast Kingdom?
Yep.
What is it on Lake Willoughby?
I think so. But basically, it's a weekend festival, and it's all different distances. So it's shorter distances up through, I think, a 25K. They call it like the Border Buster.
But again, a reference, Adina, is this one where you swim into Canada and then swim back?
You swim to the border and back.
Yeah.
That's like the big marathon one, but they also do 5Ks, 10Ks, shorter ones. So like when we're talking about people looking and seeing what they could become, it's like, oh, they're coming for the 1 or 2 mile, but they're seeing people doing the 15 mile. And they start talking to them and like, how'd you get there? Like, well, I started with the 1 and 2 mile and I just wanted to keep challenging myself.
We'll have to tag that.
We got to do something though, where we got a lot of bikers that listen to this, and there should be something where you have to go do a certain long route on Kingdom Trails
There you go.
one day, and then the next day you got to do the swim. So there's some kind of 2-day
Sign me up.
duathlon, something or other, because we got a lot of folks that want to get up there. Sidebar there though, I think there's a lot of washout. So a lot of people are not able to get up to Kingdom Trails right now, just based on some of the recent flooding in Vermont, which is kind of a bummer. So
It's a bummer.
What's your long-term vision for the conference? What do you hope this becomes?
So obviously right now my focus is New England. This is the first year and getting it off the ground and getting people excited about it, which I think is as I talk to more and more of the speakers and people in the community, they're so pumped. How can I help? How can I do more? I want to make an impact. So I think the response has been incredibly positive and supportive. I think long-term, like I would love this to be something bigger. Like right now it's small. I'd like to make it more accessible for people. And then ultimately I'd love it to be a East Coast, West Coast kind of thing, but also start interspersing more like intimate like night with a certain professional or certain person in the community. So we have more connection points in between that aren't these like massive undertakings, which I knew this would be a lot of work, but it's a ton of work.
Do you need volunteers for your event?
Yeah, I will need volunteers, which that would be incredibly helpful.
And how can folks get in touch with you on that?
So at the website, we have an intake form. It's swimbeyondthebreakers.com. They come, They can either reach out to me directly or like send a contact message through that they'd be interested in volunteering. But yeah, we take all the help we can get from the community.
Awesome.
So I'm just going to go back to something that you mentioned earlier that I've been thinking a lot about. And that you had said, hey, bunch of collegiate swimmers out there where there's not necessarily a path for them to swim after college. And I would say, Art, you and I probably experienced a little bit of that where we were both rowers in college. I rowed at a good school. Art was not as fortunate. But we then, you don't have you can join CRI or you can join, but it's a bigger, harder, tougher commitment on the rowing side. And we both naturally gravitated towards cycling. That was kind of a natural outlet for us. But I could imagine that may be even, like you said, a lot of the collegiate swimmers may get into triathlon or what have you, but if they could just naturally then start swimming and finding this, I that's something that's really resonating with me. And I would imagine outreach to that graduating collegiate community would be a great source of that next generation of open water swimmers.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be huge. And also, I don't know how, obviously you're probably not super in tune, but I don't think USA Swimming has done a phenomenal job with the open water program. Very good on the pool side, but these collegiate athletes, like you, if they had more access or more support around open water, like who knows, like the next, Olympian could be coming out of like the graduating class because they heard, I should try open water swimming.
So now I'm going to ask and I apologize, I'm going to ask a stupid question. Is there an Olympic event, open water swimming?
Yep. They do a 5K and a 10K.
They do a 5K and a 10K.
Yep.
Wow. Did you know
I
that?
was not aware of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I wasn't aware of that. It must make for great television.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
I did not see it on Peacock.
it's about as exciting as watching rowing on television, which is not exciting.
It's not.
So.
I was just at the Super Tri event in Boston last weekend, and I think they did a phenomenal job, like making triathlon spectator friendly. I think if someone can come in and do the same thing for open water swimming, it would be. It might get more spectators because it is boring.
That's cool. So what are your thoughts on New England being the #1 region in the U.S. For endurance sports? Agree or disagree?
I would say we have some of the worst elements to be an open water swimmer, yet we still have a huge open water community. We get like 3 months a year, but I know there's groups like mine that they're out there in December.
Grit.
Yeah, we're gritty. Yeah, we're hard. I mean, I tell the
San Diego, give me a break. You know what I mean? Like,
I do say to my SoCal swimmers, they're a bit soft, and they need to come to the East Coast for a bit.
Absolutely,
couldn't agree more. Anything else you want to mention in the podcast today?
No, I mean, I think anyone, at least for the conference, anyone who is thinking about open water swimming, whether you're doing it yourself or you have a family member who's thinking about doing it, like swimming is not a solo, like open water swimming is not a solo sport. There is so many aspects that go into it, including support crew, which a lot of times is family. So it's like someone's dad, it's someone's, partner. And having an understanding of like what they can do to support them, the swimmer in their family, how they can, be involved and take an active role in this, type of hobby and community. I think that's this conference is meant for that too. So
we will definitely help promote your event.
I appreciate it. But yeah, that's the big thing is like open water swimming's for everyone. And it doesn't matter. Like, don't be scared. You're going to find a very open community, and you just got to, get your toes wet and give it a shot.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
So Craig Lewin, thank you so much for being on the New England Endurance Podcast and sharing your story about endurance swimming, open water swimming. Sounds fascinating. We're going to share this on the Instagram, but folks can find you at liquidtry.com and swimbeyondthebreakers.com.
Yep. And thanks to all our sponsors. Lark Fine Foods, a 100% woman-owned specialty company baking delicious small batch cookies inspired by grown-up consumers with sophisticated taste. And I will say one of the gentlemen at Lark Fine Foods is a open water swimming that we've done a lot of styles, and now I'm nervous about all the bacteria because we generally have swum at styles for most of our swimming career. I'd also like to thank The Everyday Athlete, a book about balancing work, family, and fitness. And you kind of tied that in, that open water swimming is not a solo event, and maybe that's a way to bring family into some of those things. And Kinetic, experience the brain-boosting benefits of ketones on demand that taste great and at drinkkinetic.com. And I would think that you kind of mentioned the mental focus or the mental energy that open water swimming takes, and maybe ketones can help you out. So drink some Kinetic while you're swimming.
There you go.
So until next time, get out there, rain or shine.
Or ice.
And explore the beautiful terrain
and water
of New England. Thank you.